Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the final round of NOSH's Pitch Slam 8. I'm Ray Latif, the editor and producer of BevNet's Taste Radio podcast, the #1 podcast for the food and beverage industry. Sponsored by 301 Inc., the NOSH Pitch Slam gives early stage and promising brands the opportunity to present their business plans and products to a panel of expert judges and the audience watching at home on the live stream. The winner of the two-day competition will receive a $10,000 ad package and join a short list of brands that have triumphed in the competition, including Beckon Ice Cream, Creation Nation, Bronx Hot Sauce, Watermelon Road, and Tribali. Out of the 12 semifinalists that presented on Tuesday, 6 have made it to the final round. Let's talk about the rules for the final round. Each of the 6 brands will have 5 minutes to present and receive 5 minutes of immediate feedback from the judging panel. The judges have already sampled all of the products. After all the brands have presented, the judges will convene and we will announce the winner live just after 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll also have a short interview with the winner after the announcement. Just a note, there will be no audience voting in this round. All right, I think it's time to introduce our esteemed judging panel, starting with Pete Speranza, who's the founder and business development leader for 301 Inc., the venture arm for General Mills. He's a 22-year veteran of the food business and also an industry thought leader and advocate for change in the world's food system. Thank you for joining us, Pete. All right, up next is Karen Ivanis-Rogers, who's the director of the Albertsons Company's GAP program, which exists to accelerate the growth of emerging consumer brands by providing distribution and unparalleled merchandising resources to increase brand awareness, sales, and velocities. Next is Kiva Dickinson, who's the co-founder and managing partner of Selva Ventures, an investment firm focused on emerging consumer brands. Kiva leads all deal sourcing and execution efforts for Selva, and prior to founding the firm, Kiva was a partner with Circle Up. Last but certainly not least is Carol Ortenberg, who is the editor of NOSH, a role she's had since the site's inception in 2015. Carol previously worked and consulted for several consumer goods companies, many within the food space. She was also on the marketing team for Whole Foods Market in the North Atlantic region. Judges, thank you so much for joining us today. We have an incredible panel, and I'm looking forward to hearing all your feedback, advice, and critique of all the participants in this round. Speaking of the participants, I think it's time to get started with our first one. Judges, are you ready? Can I get a thumbs up? Fantastic. All right. Our first finalist of this round is Kristen Carmen, who is the founder of Italia Foods. Kristen, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Great to see you once again.
You hear me okay?
I can hear you fine this time. Yes. Had a little bit of an issue last time, but I can hear you loud and clear this time.
Awesome.
You ready to go?
I am.
Fantastic. Your timer for 5 minutes will start now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Carmen from Boulder, Colorado, and I'm the founder of Italia Foods. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Frozen pizza leaves much to be desired. It has a cracker-like crust, bland taste, and lacks wholesome, clean ingredients. Next slide. Introducing Italia Pizza. We make the only fresh-baked artisan crust frozen pizza. It's certified organic and happens to be gluten-free. This is the frozen pizza you never thought possible. Next slide. So what do I mean by fresh baked? Every other frozen pizza on the market is pre-baked, meaning the dough has already been baked and it's no longer fresh. What makes Italia Pizza so different is that our dough is fresh. It hasn't been pre-baked. So it rises and bubbles as it bakes in your oven into an amazing crust that's both crispy and chewy. It's like a fresh baked pizza you would get in an artisanal pizzeria. Next slide. Our noodle pizza dough is also free of all top 8 allergens. So no gluten, no dairy, no eggs, no soy, no nuts. It's also plant-based, unlike cauliflower crusts that contain milk and or eggs. Next slide, please. Great pizza starts with great ingredients. Our dough is made with organic sorghum flour instead of wheat. Sorghum is an ancient whole grain that's delicious and nutritious and is naturally gluten-free. We use simple, clean, organic ingredients, so our pizza is also better for you. It actually has less calories, fat, and cholesterol than even the leading cauliflower pizza. Next slide. We have 3 delicious flavors: the margarita, the veggie with ricotta cheese, and the nudo pizza dough that you can top with whatever you want. Next slide. Everybody loves our pizza, both people that have to eat gluten-free and those that don't. It's just great pizza. Next slide. I've spent most of my career in corporate America and just got tired of it. So I decided to go through hike the Appalachian Trail. The AT is 2,200 miles long and goes from Georgia to Maine. I did it by myself with a 40-pound pack on my back, and it was an adventure of a lifetime. And since 1936, only 21,000 people have through hiked the Appalachian Trail. Well, afterwards, I got really sick. I had a lot of digestion issues and lack of energy, and come to find out, the physical stress put on my body when I hiked the trail triggered my gluten intolerance. Well, pizza is my favorite food, and I tried all the gluten-free pizzas out there, and they were horrible. And I wasn't going to live my life without great pizza, so I decided to make it myself. And I'm from New York, so I'm pretty picky about my pizza, and it only took me 10 years. Next slide. Our target market is females between the ages of 25 and 65 who value delicious, nutritious, high quality food. They include consumers who eat gluten-free or allergy-free, millennial moms, and health-conscious consumers. They want their family favorites that taste great, have clean ingredients, and are convenient. Next slide. We just launched in Whole Foods Market. Literally on Saturday, I went to my local Whole Foods, and there it was in the freezer, ready for everyone to enjoy. Our pizza is also available online, and since COVID, our orders have increased quite a bit. We sold out the first week of April. We made more and sold out in 2 days. We made more and in 8 hours sold over 500 pizzas. Next slide. Frozen pizza is on fire right now and is expected to heat up even more. The global frozen pizza market is expected to grow by 3.2 billion in the next 3 years. New product launches are the key driver, and the true critical trends identified for growth are convenience and the increased demand for gluten-free and plant-based options. And now with COVID, people are eating at home with their families. They're looking for comfort foods, but healthy comfort foods. And this is the perfect time for Italia Pizza. It offers consumers a premium restaurant quality pizza they can enjoy at home. It has a fresh baked artisan crust, providing that indulgence in a healthier way with better for you, simple, organic ingredients.
Well done, Kristen. Fantastic presentation. For viewers at home, I forgot to mention one thing in my intro. That's if the contestants attempt to go over their 5-minute limit, they'll hear a gong sound. And we didn't have the gong sound because Kristen didn't go over her time. So thank you very much for that. All right, Pete, let's start with you. Kristen said that everyone loves our pizza. And I'm curious, did you love Italia pizza?
Yeah. It was experience-wise, it was one of the best pizzas I actually have had from the frozen section. I think to her point, to talk about the dough and bring it in fresh and let it rise in the oven, I think was tremendous. So love the taste, love the flavor, and love the concept of a naked where you can actually add your own toppings.
Karen, Kristen identified a demographic for her target consumer for Italia. Do you agree with that target consumer? Do you think it should be broader, more targeted, more niche, or more focused? Excuse me. Kristen, I'm sorry, Karen, you're muted. And she's unmuted now. Well done.
Okay, here I am. Hi. I think possibly I would go with the target that she mentioned. One piece that I don't know yet on this pizza is what it would sell for in the store. I saw the online price, but can you share more on your pricing?
Yes, so the suggested retail price on the top pizzas is $15.99, and the nudo pizza dough is $9.99.
And does that assume that it's shipping direct to the customer or is going through a distributor?
Sorry, those were the retail pricing. Oh, you mean direct to store or through distributor?
Yeah.
Through a distributor, through UNFI.
Okay. So I think that hits that market inside of a tight economic, it's a pretty high price for an in-store pizza. So it may not appeal to everyone inside that group, but maybe inside of a wealthier person in that group.
Kiva, Kristen talked about the opportunity for frozen pizza growing, particularly now amid the COVID crisis. But do you see a long-term runway for frozen pizza that's continuing to grow? And if so, what do you think of the opportunity for Italia?
Yeah, look, pizza has pretty universal appeal. I'm a believer that with what's going on in COVID now, people are planning, they're finding new habits, they're trying new things that I would anticipate they continue to enjoy once this virus subsides or passes. I would expect that over time, what they need to discover are things that have interesting concept, not just great taste. And so it's important that they have the reason to try this. And part of that could be better understanding the gluten-free aspect of the label. I too, like Pete, loved the pizza, was incredibly impressed by the texture. I think there has to be a catch, something that will catch the consumer's eye as they're walking through the frozen section. And if they get that, then I could see there being some really great runway for this brand.
Carol, one thing we haven't talked about yet is the packaging. There's that matte black package that Italia uses. We talked about this in the semifinal round. You know, it can be difficult to stand out within the freezer aisle. What do you think of the packaging and what Kristen has done with Italia?
I thought the packaging had a lot of appetite appeal to it, but I do agree that some of the call outs in terms of gluten-free or organic were a little lost on the packaging. And there's a way to differentiate yourself and stand out a little bit more in the category through those call outs. That said, speaking about the back of pack, I really appreciated that you clearly laid out how to cook the product to get the ultimate crispiness. And not only that, but included a square of parchment in the pack that if you didn't have a pizza tray, it was really easy for a consumer to cook it on their rack directly and get the best results.
Great feedback. I want to go back to Pete for a second. In terms of investability, like what are you looking for? What is 301 Inc. looking for in an emerging brand, an emerging consumer brand? And does Italia fit the bill?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things we look at is just remarkable product, right? And that wow factor. And the Kiwi's point and others, I mean, when you taste the product coming out of the oven, I mean, it is one of the better tasting products I've had. And to Carol's point, I mean, if you think about organic and you think about gluten-free and probably celebrating that more on the package, because I think that is a selling point. And if you think about gluten-free crust, I haven't seen anything quite as chewy, I would say, and the crust that's built on there in the 7 minutes in the oven, I mean, it's just phenomenal. So I think it's got a wow factor to it, which is probably our number one reason why we would invest is a remarkable product.
Outstanding. Well, great feedback, great presentation. Kristen, thank you so much again for joining us in this final round of NOSH's Pitch Slam 8. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to our second finalists, our second finalists of this competition. That's Isabel Steichen and Alexandra Dempster, the co-founders of Loopy. Alexandra, Isabel, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. You guys ready to present? You got 5 minutes.
Yes,
all right,
let's do it.
Start the timer now.
Okay. Hi, my name is Isabel Steichen. We can go to the next slide. And I spent most of my career working for early stage startups. And I am a plant-based eater, passionate plant-based eater since 2013, and started a plant-based podcast in 2016. I'm also certified in plant-based nutrition.
And I'm Allie Dempster, and I became passionate about the plant-based space with my journey with chronic health issues. I'm a certified holistic health coach, and then coincidentally, I've spent the bulk of my career working across the food and beverage space.
Next slide. So plant-based is the new organic. It's clearly going mainstream. Today, 87% of American consumers are saying that they're trying to eat more plant-based sources of protein. Also, the plant-based protein industry is supposed to grow to $6.4 billion by 2023. Next slide. However, there's still one main problem. When I first moved to the States and was telling my friends and family that I was a plant-based eater, the number one question that I was getting over and over again was, but where do you get your protein from? So I started researching that insight and realized that among consumers, that was a true hurdle, and that specifically consumers were really worried when trying to eat more plant-based sources of protein, that plant-based protein wasn't really delivering on nutrition, and that they were not feeling comfortable about getting the right amount and type of protein out of plant-based foods. Next slide. So the second insight that I got, and the second hurdle that I realized consumers were facing, was that there was a lack of on-the-go, convenient, healthy, plant-based snacking options. Next slide. So thinking about the current protein solutions that are on the market, you got animals, which we think are not the most environmentally sustainable source of protein, and also not the most ethical source of protein. Next. Then we have imitation and cultured meat, which are still not really scalable, pretty expensive, and the jury is also still out on the health benefits of those options. Next. And then we have plant-based protein isolates, which are really processed, are not actual food. So, next slide. We are here with Loopy to change the conversation around plant-based protein by introducing the small but mighty protein-packed lupini bean. And we just launched with our first product, Loopy Bites, which are made out of whole lupini beans that come in 3 different flavors right now. Next slide. Loopy is here to make life more plentiful. Next slide. We're introducing the Oxini Clean Protein Bean for human beings. And next slide. What is so amazing about lupini beans? You're probably asking yourself, well, they are the bean with the absolute highest concentration of plant-based protein among all beans and all legumes. They also have 3 times more protein than eggs, 3 times more fiber than oats. They are a complete protein like meat, and they happen to be super sustainable to grow and really good for soil health.
So with Loopy, we're aiming to make Mama Nature proud with everything that we do. Our queen bean, the lupini bean, is an incredibly sustainable ingredient that's a rotation crop that is great for sustainable agriculture and soil health. It's really great and a nutrition-packed powerhouse for the body and great for the planet. And we were very choiceful about all the packaging solutions that we're looking at and choose. Next slide. So this brings us to our lineup. This is our range of bites. They come in 3 delicious flavors and are this incredible powerhouse of nutrition. So we have tahini lemon cranberry with 9 grams of protein and 8 grams of fiber, peanut butter cacao nib with 10 grams of protein and 7 grams of fiber, and almond butter cinnamon raisin with 9 grams of protein and 8 grams of fiber. They MSRP for $3.29 a bar in retail, and we're selling them on our website and Amazon for $34.95 for a 12-pack box. Next slide. So we have heard over and over again from our consumers, who many of which have given up on bars, that this is the bar for them. It is a source of protein from a whole food, the lupini bean. It is just 5 or 6 simple whole food ingredients. There are no added sugars, artificial flavors, or preservatives. It is vegan, gluten-free, kosher, and non-GMO. Next slide. So who are we reaching? We've built our brand around this narrow and magnetic design target that has influenced our 360 design functions and features of the brand, from how we have chosen our packaging choices to how we show up visually. And this is to reach a broader consumer target, the conscious omnivore that Isabel referred to earlier. These are people and a huge audience that are very thoughtful and intentional about what they're eating, but they eat everything under the sun. They're looking for delicious food and great solutions for their body and the planet. Next slide. We hear over and over again from consumers through research that we've done that people really, and our consumers, feels great when they're eating in line with their values. Next slide. So where can you find us? Our go-to-market strategy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, your time is up, but great presentation nonetheless. Well done.
Thank
All right.
you.
Carol, let's start with you. A lot in that presentation. One thing that I picked up on was the conscious omnivores and the fact that Loopy was really looking at that as a target consumer for this particular brand. What do you think of the opportunity for that growing set of consumers? And do you think Loopy has it right in terms of who they're targeting?
I think we see a lot of plant-based focused brands saying that they're targeting this omnivore versus, pure plant eater. There's a lot more opportunity to reach more consumers. And there's a bit of a discussion going on in the industry about where your plant protein comes from, and having this clean source of plant protein, I think, really may be something that starts to appeal to consumers as they hear the word plant-based over and over again. They're going to start looking at, what does that exactly mean?
Karen, Allie, and Isabel talked about Loopy being the bar for people who don't like bars, or I think it was who hate bars. Allie, Isabel, is that how you
Given up on bars?
Who given up on bars? There you go. What do you think of that? I mean, is this a bar that can break through a category that people have given up on?
I think bars are really personal. There are so many to choose from, so many types of bars. Can this break through? I mean, I think it's an absolutely beautiful story, great ingredient, totally different. But can it break through to the masses? I think it's actually more narrow than that.
Kiva, from an ingredient perspective, obviously this is a single ingredient focus with the lupini bean. Is that an important factor to you? I mean, how do you take that into consideration when you are investing in brands?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends heavily on the level of function that ingredient provides and how unique that ingredient is relative to the broader market. What I love about Loopy and this product is they're actually taking an ingredient that has fantastic nutritional attributes, and they're going out and kind of putting a line in the sand and saying we're sort of the first that are going to brand ourselves around this ingredient and educate the consumer as to why that ingredient is special. I think that puts the brand in a pretty unique position to continue building off of that single ingredient. I think it can be a risk if the ingredient isn't special, but I think the bet here, which I feel like is a good one, is that this single ingredient is pretty powerful with the fiber and protein that it provides.
Pete, from a presentation standpoint, are there some things that you wanted to hear more about? Some questions that you might have had for Isabel or Allie?
Yeah, I happened to meet a brand in Germany about 2 years ago that actually was in lupine and doing lupine ice cream. So I know a little bit about the ingredient more than kind of the normal folk in the crowd. But there's definitely an environmental impact story that goes on with lupine as well. It's probably one of the most versatile beans that can be grown anywhere in the world and with the least amount of water. So that's just another aspect, I think, that if you could bring to life in your presentation and as you pitch it. And I think there's an education piece to KB's point is just the education around the lupine bean and just getting people comfortable with it, because in the US, obviously, it's relatively new.
Karen, we haven't talked about taste yet. And as you mentioned earlier, bars are very personal. People who love the taste of a single bar might buy a ton of them. What do you think of the taste of Loopy? And let's ask you about the packaging as well.
That was to me, right, Ray?
Yep, Karen.
Okay. I think the packaging's gorgeous. The branding, the website, all the messaging is incredible. As I said earlier, bars are really individual in terms of taste. This one's not really for me, but the other people that I shared the samples with absolutely loved them, including like a 14-year-old girl who's trying to find a way to bring protein in her diet, cares about sustainability.
I'm curious which flavor that 14-year-old really liked.
She liked the lemon. And actually, when you open the package on the lemon, it's pretty remarkable, the fragrance that comes out.
Well, there you go. If 14-year-olds like your bar, you got a good shot at making it. Isabel, Allie, thank you so much for joining us in the final round of NOSH's Pitch Slam 8. Good luck with everything going forward and hope to see you again really soon.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
All right. Fantastic stuff. If you're just tuning in, you're watching NOSH's Pitch Slam 8, sponsored by 301 Inc. We've heard from our first two finalists. Let's hear from our third. Those are Ethan Dabush and David Gottlieb, the co-founders of Savorly. Ethan, David, how are you?
Hi, very good. How are you?
Great to see you once again.
Likewise.
All right. You ready to present?
Ready, yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Your 5-minute timer will begin now.
Hi, I'm Ethan. This is David, and we are the founders of Savorly. We're two childhood friends from Belgium that moved to the US. We're living together in Brooklyn, and we love to host, entertain, having people over. but quickly found out that it is unexciting to host. There is no options for something easy, fun, convenient, and tasteful. So we created Savory. Next slide.
So entertainment is parallel to fun, obviously, and that's something we've seen has been lacking in the category. So we decided we wanted to bring fun and entertainment to and excitement to entertainment. Savory offers premium frozen appetizers set to disrupt a large, sleepy, and quite frankly, boring category. We want to make it easy for people to get together with family and friends, and our consumers at Savory know that they don't have to sacrifice quality, taste, or experience over convenience. There's this growing trend in the restaurant industry of plate sharing, and we want to bring that into retail and consequentially into the household. Next slide.
So we launched Savory with our party bites. So these are made with authentic French puff pastry, fresh ingredients, are veggie friendly, and are all assorted in one easy to prepare box so that no matter what size your party is, you can offer a variety of flavors to your guests. Now our appetizers are ideal for every occasion. And at $7.99, we've seen consistent velocities throughout the year with a huge spike in Q4. Next slide.
So the newest addition to the Savory family is our gratin. Our gratin is a classic French dish of scalloped potatoes made with cheese. So obviously we made them smaller. We added 4 cheese. Our second gratin is made with cauliflower and broccoli to swap the potatoes, which is a great way to eat your veggies. The gratin is set at $6.99. Our gluten-free friendly are the perfect appetizer, breakfast, single-serve side dish, ideal for everyday consumption. Next slide.
So, who are our consumers? With Savory, we wanted to fill a need for urban millennials like us that are looking for quality and convenience in the kitchen. The urban millennial is outgoing and is seeking for new trends and natural options when shopping. Now, our largest fan is, of course, the perfect host. That covers the moms, the grandmas, the dads, who have a habit of hosting and like to find new ways to impress, but they don't want to spend hours in the kitchen. So I can't tell you how much my mom loves our products when having guests over. So this is our main market, as they're already looking for products for the next entertainment opportunity. The last one, the non-entertainers, we're convinced that we can attract that group as well because we have a compelling message and an approach about packaging. Next slide.
So after our launch mid last year, we're able to secure placement in over 150 stores spreading over Central Market, the Fresh Market, and one region of Whole Foods in the Mid-Atlantic. And by doing so, we're able to validate our brand and our product and turning velocities beyond our own expectations for a new brand on the shelf, with units per store per week peaking at 10. And in the past few months, we've been able to add some exciting specialty store to our store locators such as Nugget, Draeger's, and Woodlands, and others. And this is part of our strategy to grow organically in that specialty sector and maintain consistent velocity. We're also super excited to share that our products have been picked up by Whole Foods Global in Q4 of this year after the successful rotation we've had in the Mid-Atlantic. Next slide.
So this was our merchandising at Whole Foods last December. Look at that beautiful display. It was amazing for us to partner up with Whole Foods and to be able to show a young brand in such a setting. We also supported, of course, in-store demos, and it was a rewarding experience for us, honestly, to meet and talk and be able to talk and listen to our consumers. So we learned a lot from that, and these learnings we put them also into practice. We fine-tuned our recipes, we have a stronger messaging, and we feel the need that our consumer has. Next slide.
And we are continuously listening to our consumers and trying to find new ways to service our fans with new recipe formulations, products like our turnovers that are made with premium flaky puff pastries in different fillings such as cheese or scrambled eggs. Our mini bagels are ready to be launched to market very soon, as well as our mini croquettes that are not even pre-fried, only pre-baked, and that's a definite call out in itself. Innovation is definitely part of our DNA, and living in this digital world, we're constantly looking for our next challenge. We won't spill too many details on the party box you see in the middle, but you should definitely be on the lookout for its launch in about 2 months. Next slide. Thank you.
All right. Well done, Ethan and David.
Thank you.
Kiva, let's start with you. I saw you nodding during the part of the presentation when David and Ethan were talking about retail? How much emphasis do you put on retail footprints and distribution from an investor perspective?
Look, in the frozen category, it's so massive. That's how you generate discovery. That's how you generate scale. These guys are getting into the right places right off the bat. I think what really gets me about this brand is conceptually it's different. It speaks to a consumer need who might be walking through the aisles and very quickly capture their attention of recognizing, hey, this actually solves my problem. There's not an alternative to it. And the packaging is completely spot on to attract the consumer attention and get the hook. It's fun. It communicates all the pieces of the brand that the guys were speaking to in their presentation. It's very rare that I think a company can do that so effectively out of the bat in retail, especially in the frozen section. I think it's everything here, and the guys really nailed it.
Thank you.
All right. Carol, it's definitely different. Does it disrupt the status quo of soggy frozen apps, as Ethan and David described?
Having tried it, I can definitely say that it is not soggy at all and tastes fantastic. I think my question is, I like seeing where you see the brand expanding and becoming more of a platform. I think the use case for parties per se is somewhat smaller, and being able to position things as sides or breakfast will help expand beyond. I personally, when I saw them, I'm like, I don't host parties, but then I started thinking about, well, I do have friends over for dinner, or I could use this as a side with a meal. So I think finding those ways you can dial in your marketing throughout the rest of the year when it's not the holiday season may help you see more of a continuous sales pipeline throughout the year.
So
Pete, Ethan and David outlined an innovation strategy and innovation pipeline, talked about it being part of their DNA. Do you think they're on the right track in terms of how they're expanding and developing the brand?
No, I do, and I think to a few folks had mentioned earlier around the appetizer and this kind of party kind of occasion, or when you have smaller groups come over. I think there's such a big white space there, and there isn't brands that are really in that space and doing it well and having fun with it like you guys are having. I think continue your pipeline moving in that direction and less on maybe the meal occasion and the meal replacement. I think might still be a good thing to do until your brand's solidified a little bit more, so you don't get caught up in the hot pockets or pricing things with some of the larger companies that might be in that space. But I think you're spot on, and I love the packaging and yeah, and then the comment I would only give is the product might not be as beautiful as it is on the packaging, so just improve almost the look of it, because the flavors are great. It's just the look as you presenting it off to your friends, I think would be important as well. So
thank you.
Karen, how do you think this brand fits into the frozen set? We heard from some of the other judges about the importance of being able to stand out in frozen. Do you think it has what it takes from a packaging standpoint to really grab that attention of the shopper? And from a merchandising standpoint, do you think the packaging works in that respect as well?
Absolutely. I think the brand overall is very disruptive, and the innovation that you showed even more so. I think your packaging and your graphics are gorgeous. And I think you'll easily stand out. And I think everything that you're doing with it, from the recipes to the quality to the packaging, is really going to help you not get in the rut of what happens in the frozen category in terms of price and promotion. You're kind of going to command something that other brands don't have the luxury of.
All right, fantastic stuff. Ethan and David, great presentation, great feedback from the judges. Well done. Let's move on to our fourth finalist of this round, who is Margarita Womack, who is the founder and CEO of Latin Goodness Foods, the maker of Mas Panadas. Margarita, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. By yourself?
Great to see you once again. All right, you got 5 minutes this time instead of your tiny 2 minutes from the semifinal round. Are you ready?
Ready to go.
All right, let's do it. Your timer begins now.
Well, hello, everybody. From the Mas Panadas factory, I am Margarita Womack, the founder of Latin Goodness Foods, and Mas Panadas is our first brand. Next slide, please. Mas Panadas just came to be because I'm stingy. I am stingy with my time. There's just never enough of it, especially when you have a crowd of little hungry boys around. So I needed more from my food, but without taking more of my time. I started making a dish I grew up with, empanadas, but making them wholesome. So I would keep the convenience, but make it also nutritious for me and my family. Turns out that time scarcity is really not just my problem. I'm sure you all find that there's just never enough time in the day. Modern Americans are very busy. Since the 60s, people spend 40% less time cooking at home. We eat about a fifth of our meals in the car, and 12% of our diet is fast food. This is well documented by the CDC. So there's an opportunity here for people that are looking for convenient but nutritious food options to fit the routine. Next slide, please. Lack of time also contributes to a poor diet and obesity. So there's a food equity issue opportunity here too, to provide nutritious but convenient food options that can fit the lifestyle of people in disadvantaged situations. Next slide, please. So maspanadas, what is it? You can have everything. It's an authentic but modern dish that you can allow, that lets you enjoy a wholesome and delicious meal. So all the ingredients of a homemade meal, but just using your hands. We're going to talk about the product, the market, the message, and the business model here. Next slide, please. So empanadas are easy. We have the ready minutes from oven to microwave, in just so you put them in there out of the freezer and you're ready to go. They're easy to eat. You only need your hands. They're versatile. It's something I could eat for lunch here at the office when I'm too busy. Then I could go home and feed it to my kids in between, before they go to a soccer game. Or right now, when we're locked at home, who wants to be complicated chopping and cooking? And it's delicious. We have flavors to match all tastes, from your traditional carnivore to the conscious omnivore, and also plant-based options. Next slide, please. These are wholesome at grade versus other sort of dishes that fit this space, that are based on traditional Latin American dishes that are kind of crossover products, such as, for instance, taquitos versus chicken taquitos. We have a lot more of the good stuff, but a lot less of the bad stuff. Higher protein, more fiber, whole grains, micronutrients, and no preservatives or additives. Next one, please. So we are an empowering pocket of goodness, the components of a full meal in a snackable format that lets you accomplish more. It's great for families that are trying to balance the demands of life and work. Next one, please. We are a big market opportunity here because we tap into different areas of the food industry. We have a frozen CPG and private label that taps into a $35 billion opportunity. And then also we have food service. So another large opportunity where in both fields, we're looking for clean label, healthier options. And those are the subsets growing within the market. Next one, please. So the business model, we have that consumer line, packaged goods. We have the food service lines where we have high margins, and also a private label line with high volume, reliable orders. And we also now launched e-commerce direct to consumer. Next one, please. We have a diversified customer base that matches these different lines. Go-getters looking for a wholesome option on the run, caterers, hotels, and also major supermarket chains. Next one, please. I'm the founder. I grew up immersed in the food world, a science background, a mother, a wife, a proud immigrant, just hired a COO, Rod Gresham, former director of operations at Cava, and also working with Peter Kay, former CMO at Honest Tea. Next one, please. We've grown significantly. I have to go a little quick here, running out of time. Over 4.5 times last year. Next one, please. Ooh, there was a blank slide that's missing there. Though we expect to make over $1 million this year and continue growing to up to 12 million by 2022. This is a powerful vision. We've gotten great reception by the media and the market. Next one, please. So really appreciate your time today and your attention. Thank you so much.
All right. Well done, Margarita. Pete, let's start with you. Some of the last few slides, Margarita talked about a single operating model that can fit 3 different channels, retail, food service, and private label. Is she on the right track?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, keeping that omni-channel and looking for those avenues to, especially food would be another channel that would be great for this product. But yeah, to get the word out and to get the product in people's mouths. I mean, those are good channels to be dabbling in.
Carol, if we were still here working in the office, I have a feeling you'd be making some of these products for our colleagues here, and the smell alone usually would get folks going and running into the kitchen. What do you think of the taste of this product? And is it truly an upgrade, as Margarita mentioned, to other products, similar products on the market?
I totally think it was an upgrade. They're delicious. I really liked how quickly they cooked, but yet still had that crunchy outer coating. There was no gooiness towards in the dough. And I liked that sometimes the dough is so overpowering that you don't get the flavors of the filling that shine through. And I thought everything was really nicely balanced, and they were a good size as well. Sometimes they can be too big. They're not, can't really figure out when to eat them. And I thought these could lend themselves to a variety of applications and uses in my own house.
Kiva, it's interesting. I think this is this is the third frozen brand that we've seen today, and some good feedback on the first two. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this frozen product and how it fits into that set.
Yeah, I think it does a good job. I think we're starting to see more health conscious consumers shop the frozen section of the store more and more. People starting to realize that frozen is almost the new fresh, or trending that way, and the lack of preservatives. I think these guys call that out on the package. I think it'd probably be a bigger part of the value prop. It's obviously a great taste. It's easy to make. It's a favorite that you've probably tasted before but never thought about making at home. But knowing that there's a conceptual health element would probably help drive more consumers this way. I also think the package is great from a display of the food and kind of craveability standpoint, but they could probably add a bit more color to catch the consumer's eyes or walking through that part of the store.
Karen, from a retailer perspective, we heard Margarita talk about the retailers they're currently in. How much of an emphasis do you put on the current retail footprint as an indicator of how well the product would do in your stores?
Oh, it's always an indicator. I would say we look closely at the first retailers that brands go into. We take it with a grain of salt because our stores are different, our competition is different, our shoppers are different. But this is a product that has really mass appeal across every type of retailer, because what mom isn't looking to have a better option than a taquito or a pizza pocket to give their kid? And this product is really that, and it's delicious and it's good for parents and kids. I think as far as the conventional retail grocery chain, what she's going to need to keep an eye on are the retail prices, because it's, like per piece, significantly more, but it's a significantly better product. But people's budgets are different. So I think it's a total winner.
Pete, Margarita talked about this, and Karen just touched on it, this time constraint that folks are facing, just not enough time in the day to feed yourselves, to feed your family. Is that something that we're going to continue to see? Is that something where people are, as Karen mentioned, looking for more foods in the freezer aisle? And in particular, do you think they'll be looking for a product like Mas.
Yeah, to KB's point, I mean, frozen is the new fresh, but just more convenient, right? And something you can hold in your shelf, but also comes with limited ingredients or can keep it pretty simple. So I think focusing on the health message, focusing on the ethnic flavors, I think would keep you away from some of those competitors that we've just talked about, and keep your price point where you'd want it, and just focus on that taste appeal. But that space has been grown in interest, but also it's because of this, limited ingredients in a frozen setting actually works quite well.
Carol, we only have a few seconds left. One thing we didn't necessarily touch on is nutrient density, and that's something that has popped up in terms of new products and how consumers evaluate them. Is nutrient density something that consumers will look at with a product like this?
I mean, I think nutrition has become such a personalized matter. You know, what's appealing to a keto consumer is completely different than to a low calorie consumer. What I liked though was that I thought this product had different SKUs that could appeal to different dietary habits. And if you were looking for lower calorie options, or higher fat or protein or plant-based meat, you could kind of find an option amidst the different choices they offer up.
All right, great stuff. Margarita, fantastic having you back on the NOSH Pitch Slam 8 competition. Good luck with everything going forward. Hopefully you'll see us again really soon.
Thank you.
All right. And fantastic feedback from the judges. We're really lucky to have them participating in this round. And hopefully they have some good feedback and advice for our next finalist, who is Jake Neller, the co-founder and CEO of Sweet Nothings. Jake, good to see you again.
Hey, Ray. Thanks again for having me. And my mouth is salivating from hearing those 4 pitches.
Well, the important thing is if the judges if after your presentation, the judges are salivating. So hopefully they will be. And you ready to present?
Yeah, thanks so much.
Fantastic. Your 5 minutes begin now.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Jake, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sweet Nothings. Next slide, please. Sweet Nothings starts with my co-founder, Beth. Beth has been an entrepreneur for over 15 years, starting her first company in 2004. With her busy schedule, she was constantly looking for healthy snacks that actually tasted good without having a bunch of ingredients she had never heard of. She knew that if she had more time, she would make the snacks herself for her husband, her children, that were good and good for them. Her family always asked for smoothies, but the prep, mess, and cleanup made it a hard ask. She decided to reinvent the format in which her family enjoyed their daily smoothies. Frozen in a cup for later, while maintaining a texture that felt indulgent like ice cream. She started making large smoothie batches, freezing them in single-serving cups so she could grab one for breakfast, her son could grab one for an after-school snack, or her husband could eat one with a glass of wine after dinner. Once Beth's friends and neighbors started begging her to make more, she knew she was onto something and decided she wanted to bring Sweet Nothings to the world. Next slide, please. Sweet Nothings makes frozen, plant-based, spoonable smoothies out of a blend of just organic fruits, nuts, and seeds. Our product comes in single-serving cups with a built-in spoon under the lid for easy, all-day, grab-and-go snacking. Each of our 5 flavors contains 8 or fewer antioxidant-rich and nutrient-dense real ingredients. We never add any sugars, gums, stabilizers, or preservatives. Our mission is to provide snacks with no compromising, including less of what we don't need, like ingredients you can't pronounce, added sugars and animal products, and more of what we do, organic fruits, nuts, and seeds, and functional superfoods. Next slide, please. Sweet Nothings fills a gap in the frozen set. Last year, Lightspeed and Mintel did a study on snacking motivations and attitudes, where there were a few main takeaways that help us feel conviction in Sweet Nothings filling a need consumers are looking for. First, as you can see on the left, when asked about innovation desired in frozen snacks, consumers overwhelmingly said products made with fruit was something missing today. They also desired products with functional benefits. Next, on the right, you can see traits associated with frozen snacks today. 2 of the most popular traits according to consumers today are indulgent and too processed. However, very few consumers think of frozen snacks as being nutritious, and we are here to change that. What makes our product different is that, next slide please, is that it's the first ready-to-eat spoonable smoothie. We merchandise in the frozen fruit set instead of frozen dessert, as our customers tell us it is the perfect grab-and-go breakfast, midday snack, or healthy indulgence. We have 2 main customers today. First, our brand discovery-focused millennials. Second, our health-conscious parents, who are looking for products with simple ingredients that they and their kids actually want to eat. Both of those customers are the type of people who turn a label over, as we are past the days where someone sees low calorie on the front of a label and believes it is good for them. We launched in retail in February. Next slide, please. Thanks. We launched in retail in February, and we are fortunate to have already experienced some early success. Today, we're in over 150 doors across natural, independent, and specialty retailers. We have another 1,500 doors coming online in the next 4 months across a few major retailers on both the natural and conventional side. The logos seen here are current partners or partners that we are launching with in June. We're excited to continue to grow our footprint and bring our healthy, delicious, anytime snacks to consumers across the country. Thank you.
All right. Great job, Jake. Carol, let's start with you. Interesting product, interesting brand innovation as a spoonable smoothie, the world's first spoonable smoothie. Is this something that's going to require a lot of consumer education, or is it pretty straightforward in terms of how Jake described it as a spoonable smoothie?
I think the concept of a smoothie is pretty familiar to consumers at this point. However, a lot of the other products we're seeing on the market are kind of the cups that you blend and then pour back in, or smoothie packs. And to me, it still was more of like a frozen dessert consistency than a smoothie, which I think of as drinking with a straw. So I'm wondering about the positioning a little and how that might evolve. Some of that portability of I can pour it in a glass and go drink it with a straw on the go, you lose a little bit of that with this product. It's not something I could see parents, giving their kids while they're in the car to sort of snack on, or so you kind of need to be at home near a freezer.
Pete, Jake outlined a lot of information that he sourced from market research firms. How much consideration do you give that research that he did in his presentation if you were to, say, invest or look at this company?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good when you got educated founders that are really in tune with the category or the competitive set, or even the dynamics that are happening in market, right? So we would definitely like like that when we have an educated alcohol CEO that's chasing the right stuff. But one thing to just mention to Carol's point, I think just learning between, is it a snack or is it a dessert? That's something that I think needs to be sorted out a little bit to feel confident that where you're looking at and what you're talking about as your kind of competitive set or what you're trying to accomplish shows through to the consumer.
Karen, the products from the slides looked pretty appealing. How did they taste to you?
They were good. And when I got past the hurdle of expecting an ice cream, because the package that was shipped to us was this gorgeous display case with all these flavors, and my mind was thinking ice cream, and then it was different, which I think speaks to some of the feedback people have just given. So I really enjoyed the fruit ones, to answer your question. I did want to elevate something else, and that is the challenge that Carol and Pete kind of brought up will really play out in the store on where you go for placement. And I went to a Safeway yesterday to kind of look at this, because I heard you the other day saying you wanted to be in frozen fruit. There is nothing of this shape and size in those sections. It will be very difficult to be there just from you would have to be driving everyone to find it, because nobody will look for it. It looks like a novelty, which makes you think ice cream, but it's not ice cream. So I would just say it's in the positioning, but it'll come all the way to shelf, and it will be a very difficult problem in conventional grocery, my expertise.
Kiva, Pete mentioned that he really likes founders that are in tune with research, know who have done their homework. And we talk to a lot of investors who say it's investing is a lot about the people. And Jake talked a lot about his co-founder Beth and himself as the founders of this company. Did you get enough from the presentation, and do you feel like it's a powerful message when presenting this brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think an authentic founder story, especially connected to solving a problem that they themselves faced and then found that more people probably had, is always a great place to start. You can feel it, especially if you decide to put the founder is very much the face of the brand, telling that story and connecting with the target audience to the extent that one of the segments that Jake outlined is that young parent who's looking to feed their kids something more healthy. I also think that the combination here that impressed me is working from a place of seeing a category that has left holes for innovation. I think they did that well. I also think that they learned from other brands of the past that have been successful. One of the things that stood out to me on their packaging was the ingredients listed vertically, very front and center on the front, for you to understand that this is really the sum of 6 products or 6 ingredients, each of which you kind of nod your head when you look at it. That's something that I think they've drawn from others that have done the positioning piece at shelf really effectively. I think that starts with the founding team, pulling in those insights and connecting it to the market opportunity.
All right, great stuff. Great feedback. Jake, once again, well done with your presentation, and good luck with everything going forward.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right. Wow, time flies. We are down to our last finalist of the round, and that's Danny Dubana, who's one of the co-founders of Z&Z. Danny, how are you? Danny, I believe you're muted.
Just checking. I'm doing great, Ray. How are you?
I'm doing pretty darn good. Love the backdrop.
Thank you. It's like we're there.
Indeed, indeed. All right. You ready to present?
I am.
All right, my friend. Your 5 minutes begin now.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Danny Dubana. I'm one of the brothers behind Z&Z. At Z&Z, we're looking to reinvigorate cultural favorites, and we're starting with the Za'atar Man'usha. Next slide, please. So Man'usha is a cultural icon in the Middle East. It's a flatbread. It's crispy on the outside, slightly chewy on the inside, and it's topped with the most delicious, savory yet tangy blend of herbs called za'atar. Next. To tell you how we got here, I got to talk for a second about fried chicken. So those are my dad's restaurants that we grew up in, where our love for food and hospitality was really born, who later inspire us to start selling the Za'atar Man'usha at DC farmers markets. So it would eventually lead us to expanding to retail to meet growing demand. Next slide, please. And the thing we heard the most often at markets was, is that pizza? And for us, this was kind of a great problem to have, because it was a way for us to introduce the consumer to our product, but in a way that was really easy to understand. The other thing we saw the most often was people that grew up in the Middle East going absolutely nuts when they found us, because it's so difficult to find the Man'usha here, and especially a good quality version. What this showed us was that there's real demand for this product from 2 key segments. So we started thinking critically and looking at the frozen category, and saw that there wasn't a lot of innovation in the space, particularly around pizza. Next slide. So that's why we launched the frozen version of our Za'atar Man'usha to meet this growing appetite for ethnic flavors in the freezer aisle, but in a very familiar way. And so while we're definitely not pizza, we are coming for a big slice of that pie. Next slide, please. So our Man'usha is naturally vegan. It's ready in just 5 minutes. It's made with only the best quality, simple ingredients, the most important of which is our za'atar. Next slide, please. Our za'atar is the best-selling and highest-rated za'atar on Amazon, and our spices have been doing really well at Whole Foods, where we've been getting a lot of great direct feedback, introducing consumers to this flavor profile, and building brand awareness. Next slide, please. And with these lessons in mind, we launched the Man'usha with exclusive DC partners retailing at $8.99. Right now, our focus is really listening and learning what our customers want. Instead of just looking to add doors, we want to know that we can sell well when we do move to a new store. We also get messages of excitement from all across the country of people who want to get their hands on our Man'usha. So that's why we'll be launching online shipping to meet that demand, and also anticipating the shifting marketplace. We think the online store is a great forum for storytelling to allow us to continue to build really strong brand equity that we think is so important to do before expanding further. We'll also be rounding out a full set of SKUs and then going to these larger retailers that serve our target consumer. Next slide, please. Our target market is millennial parents. They're really busy and are looking for an easy way to feed their family with healthy meals. There's also the young professionals who value convenience, but even more so, are always on the lookout for this new flavor of product to try and tell their friends about. They're also really thinking about the environment, looking to reduce their consumption of animal products, but without sacrificing on flavor. Next slide, please. And so we're looking to capture all these people through what we call the Manusha movement. Primarily by being a digital-first food brand, we have a lot of creative content, specifically videos that we feature the Manusha as part of a larger lifestyle. This really resonates with our followers, and we get great engagement on it. We're also doing a lot of outreach and creative brand partnership to get the Manusha in as many hands and as front of many eyeballs as possible. And then the last thing we're doing, which is the most important, is being really thoughtful about creating a culture around the Manusha, through stuff like events and experiences, because we believe it really has the potential to take off into the mainstream. There's pizza night, there's Taco Tuesday, and we want Manusha Monday. Next slide, please. So all of this works together to create a community that people really want to be a part of. And this is going to help us mobilize organic brand ambassadors. Next slide, please. Like you all, to help spread the word of mouth and get people to know and love the Manusha, to want it before they ever step foot in the store. So thank you today, and let's start the Manusha movement.
Wow, Danny, great job. You really hit us with that last slide. I wasn't expecting that. Fantastic stuff. I think Pete's was really my favorite. That mustache it works for you, Pete. Did you ever have a mustache?
Might have to grow one. No, I never had, but it seems reasonable now.
Yeah, come on,
Pete. Pete, let's start with you. As part of their consumer education strategy, Z&Z is really pushing on this tagline of "It's not pizza." Do you think that is a helpful kind of way to introduce this to consumers?
Yeah, no, I think it is a way to separate yourself a little bit, and having fun with Manusha and the mustaches or other ways to get people to kind of, at least early on, get some interest to learn a little bit more. I mean, those are good ways in, because there is an education here to get people comfortable, with those unique flavors and the savory side of it. And flatbed bread is easy to understand, obviously, but the Mediterranean flavors or the Middle Eastern flavors, it's a fun way to kind of keep that education top of mind and fun with, so people kind of remember it. So that's great.
Karen, Danny talked about the importance of taking the cultural aspects of the brand and product mainstream. Do you think that is an important part of getting into retail? Is appealing to a mainstream audience via an interesting and differentiated cultural ingredient or product?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And I think it's so unique to be going into the pizza category with something that has some level of familiarity but tastes nothing like it. I think the packaging is outstanding. I think the back of the package and giving you tips on how to make it for yourself, it's clear. I mean, it's really good.
Kiva, I don't think I've asked you about taste directly. I think you've commented on taste, but I know, as an investor, I assume as an investor, you have to like the products that you're investing in. How did this product operate, or how did you think about this product from a taste standpoint?
Yeah, I thought the taste was really good. I thought the texture was great, especially for given how easy it was to make. I think it was like 5 minutes in the oven. We threw it in as kind of an after cooking, but ready with the meal without everything else getting cold. The great thing about it, I found, was it gives you a really easy and approachable exposure to ethnic flavors that I just would not possibly be able to make myself. And so from that standpoint, it's not something that I had before, Manusha in general, but I was familiar with some of the kind of spices and flavor profiles from eating in restaurants in the past. So I think as you play that forward to getting people to try it without having tried Manusha, it's probably somehow connecting to the kind of flavor expectation that they may have, because it's familiar once you taste it, but it wasn't familiar just looking at the package.
Carol, we've heard a lot about convenience as an important factor in the frozen set, a more important factor of late. Z&Z, Danny talked about convenience as an important part of their branding and positioning as well. How do you evaluate this type of brand as being a new kind of product and a new sort of food to the market when thinking about that convenience play?
I think for the consumer, the only thing I wonder is, if it's not pizza and they know what to do with pizza and how that solves the convenience issue in their life, making a quick dinner, what problem is this solving for them? Is it a side with my dinner? Do I eat this entirely in place of a pizza? That's the only question I would have around convenience. And sort of speaking to that, I really liked the whimsy of the package. I wonder if it could speak to that a little bit. And I also thought about that package when stacked on the shelf like a pizza box. I do worry that you lose some of that billboard and space to market it's not a pizza or what to use it for that you see a traditional pizza box has when retailers stack it instead of putting it front facing in.
All right, great stuff. We have a few seconds left. Does anyone have any questions about the presentation or comments about the presentation that Danny gave today? Pete, I'll throw it back to you for the last comment of the round.
No, Danny, thank you. It was great. Once again, having fun with it, but being educational and to Carol's point, understanding kind of the issue that you're solving for the consumer, I think will be top of mind as you're going forward. So, but thanks, it was great, and it will pop off shelf. That's a nice package. I love it.
Outstanding. Danny, well done. Thank you so much for joining us in this final round of NOSH Pitch Slam 8, and good luck with everything going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Wow. Those are some fantastic brands and products. Before we get to the deliberation part of the round, I do want to just get a general get the general thoughts of some of the judges based on what we saw today. It seems like we saw a lot of really good things. There were some things that some of the brands could fix or make a little bit better. But in general, it seemed like everything was pretty polished. Carol, would you agree?
Yeah, it's amazing to see these emerging entrepreneurs, how well thought out their pitches were, how polished they were, also how far along their packaging was impressively done. And I thought it was interesting to see so many coming. Sorry, it was getting a little dark in here. It was interesting to see how many came from the frozen set specifically. And I think that just speaks to how that category is seeing so much interest, both from consumers, brands, and retailers alike.
Yeah, I mean, 5 out of the 6 brands are merchandised in the frozen set. Karen, do you see a runway? Do you see a pathway for those 5 brands that we saw today? And if not, what are some of the things that you think the brands, in a general sense, could do better to get into that frozen set and do well?
I definitely see a path. The speed bumps, I would say, frozen, in some retailers are very expensive from a slotting perspective. At least 3 of them have really high price points. And that could prove to be problematic. They have great products, but they're outside of the norm. But I think they all have a good shot.
Great.
You don't get a long time to prove yourself in frozen, though.
Kiva, for someone who invests in emerging consumer brands, I have to think you saw some great things in the presentations today. From a presentation standpoint, what are some of the things that you wanted to see more of, and what are some of the things that really stood out to you in the presentations that you saw today?
Yeah, I would echo the sentiment of just how far along some of these companies just look and feel after such a short period of time on the positive side. They look a heck of a lot more formidable than I think we're used to seeing from brands that are only a year or 2 old. And I think that just brings a lot of excitement to the sector as a whole. Especially to focus on the frozen piece because there were 5. One of the biggest pieces of this story for these brands are how they're going to get into more doors and how they're going to quickly prove themselves in those doors. So I would love to hear more from the kind of feedback of why buyers were excited about them and the path forward of how to tell the story of early success in those retailers to get into more. I think we focused a lot on why the consumer might be excited, but a lot of this is playing the retailer game too, and thinking through how they're going to do with a lot with very few resources out of the gate would be really valuable to us.
Yeah, I mean, echoing that and sort of following up on that, Pete, from a marketing standpoint, we heard from a couple of the brands talking about how they're using social media or other forms of marketing to get the word out about the brands. Did you hear enough from these early stage brands about how to get the word out and what they're doing from a marketing standpoint? And do you have any suggestions on how they can improve their marketing strategies?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's typical for this early stage, right? Very scrappy, very limited budgets, right? I think just the continual evolution and once again, since we've seen a lot in the frozen section, it will come a little bit of how to socially get people interested to find it, and then once they find it, where is it in that frozen set? I mean, with those doors in the way as well, it's going to be super important that their package is popping and it's telling a story quickly so people will get interested in looking and finding it. That'll be just as important as any kind of social at this point, I think.
Outstanding. Well, if our audience, live stream viewers at home can, you should all clap for our fantastic judging panel and for our finalists, because I thought everyone did an amazing job today. Judges, thank you so much. And right now, the judges are going to deliberate and pick a winner, and we're going to announce that winner at 2 p.m. Stay tuned for that. We're going to announce it live. In the meantime, please enjoy an encore presentation of our office hours program. This one will be featuring category reviews and resets, new directions for retail, and buyer expectations, featuring John Majori and Betsy Gillette. Also, just want to remind folks that coming up very soon, sign up today, subscribe to BevNet and NOSH, and you'll get in for free. All right, let's get to the deliberation portion of our round. The judges and I are going to step out. For now, live stream viewers, enjoy what you see in this encore presentation of Office Hours.
Good afternoon and welcome to Office Hours. I'm BevNet Editor-in-Chief Jeff Kleinman, and today we're going to be talking about retailing. If you think about it, every purchase entails retail disruption. A bottle pulled from the cooler, an ice cream from the freezer, they cause a void at the shelf, a break in a perfect merchandising plan. But that disruption is anticipated, and the act of that disruption feeds a constantly evolving evaluation of products to determine increasing or decreasing demand. The nightly and weekly resets of categories reflect that regular post-disruption return to order, one that's constantly undertaken by vendors and store workers alike. But now we're in the era of ghost stores and senior shopping hours, of personal protective equipment and dividers at the cash register, of Zoom product pitches and chain-wide allocations. How do you create order when the world has thrown a COVID-19 sized bowling ball through your planogram so that not just short-term resets, but long-term category and product reviews, the ones that only take place once or twice a year, are completely mixed up? The entire industry is dependent on that planning cycle to determine what will happen for the year to come. Those buyer meetings that you spend thousands of dollars on in travel and hotel, the approvals that result in increased time at your co-packer to get enough of your new product into the pipeline, that money you've raised for marketing and sales efforts, they all have to wait. Maybe will even be delayed for the year, because, like so many other employees, retail buyers are pretty much frozen in place, putting innovation on the back burner and hoping to fill the shelves with products that at least echo familiarity. So what are entrepreneurial brands, and not just startups, but innovative companies of all sizes, supposed to do at a time when grocery trips are down and impulse purchasing is largely happening online? How do you start or solidify a winning partnership with a retailer when the stores are as much crisis centers as they are proving grounds? To help us figure out, we're bringing in a pair of retailing experts to join the discussion. To begin with, we welcome John Majori, who spent 30 years in the food business, the last 17 running a brokerage and consultancy that specializes in high growth brands like Vita Coco, Red's Burritos, and Siggy's. He's in touch with buyers across the country, either as a broker or a broker manager, and he's here to paint the picture of the current retail purchasing environment. As always, we want you to join us and participate in the conversation. So please email questions to ask@bevnet.com or text them to 781-423-3520, and we'll get them on as soon as we can today. John, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here, Jeff.
So I've decided early on that we're going to use you initially as a correspondent from the on-the-ground view. So for your clients, what have the last 8 weeks been like in terms of selling in and moving product?
Well, it's been so different. I mean, what's happening is so unpredictable day to day. The buyer's job has transitioned to focus on getting product onto the shelf, which was like an afterthought in the past. It was just something that just happened. Now all of a sudden they're a lot more engrossed into it. So it's a whole domino effect of what's going on with buyers not being in the office. But, I tell people, even if they were in the office, they wouldn't have time to meet with vendors anyway. So it's a different way of life for them. There's so much different things happening unordinary. So what's really happening out there is the buyers are doing their best they can to look at new items, but they know that the resets have been changed. They know that the model is going to be different for the back half of 2020, unlike it's ever been before. And they're going to do the best they can to get the best optimum product out there on the shelf for their consumers. Nobody knows when the end date's going to be, when the transition's officially going to happen. Some chains have gone back to start doing resets again. Others still have them on hold. Certain chains will be pushing them back, but it's also going to be a juggling effect because some categories need to be reset at certain times. You take the soup category or the baking needs category. You can't push those resets off until December or January because they need to be done before the season. So it's probably going to mean that some retailers are going to be juggling up their reset schedules to get the key commodity categories done at the right time.
Weren't there a lot of categories that had already slowed their reviews even before this hit?
Yeah, many chains have gone to basically reviewing categories once a year, except for a few of the high volume, high turnover categories, such as yogurt or nutrition bars and things like that. So in some cases, if category reviews get canceled, basically it could be 2 years between reviews with some of the retailers. And that's a fact of life. I mean, the buyers, their hands are going to be tied because there's only so many resources they can put towards the resets.
So let's talk about resets for a minute. What's going on in the stores on like a nightly or a weekly basis? And what's the significance of that in the marketplace?
Now, I'm sure everybody's been in stores. You've seen the stores have been, honestly, they're a mess because they've gone through so much product. So, tags are missing, things. Planogram integrity is not what it once was in probably any store. Guys are just trying to fill up the shelves with any product that they get coming in. So the reset's going to definitely take some time to get done. And the stores have to get back straightened out. So that's what the buyers are really going to be focused on first. And so typically with resets, you've got, 3 different types you got like a full category review, category reset. You've got one that's like an adjustment, and then you've got like a pull and plug. So the first one, the major reset, where the buyer category manager really digs into the numbers, decides what the best items are, what the optimum set is, and they recreate the planogram from scratch. In many cases, those are going to get canceled, or they're going to get changed to be like an adjustment. What's an adjustment? Kind of what it says. We can bring in some new brands, we can bring in some new items, but we're not going to reinvent the wheel there into the section. And I think that's where most of the category is going to be, probably for at least the back half of 2020 or even into early 2021. And then the pull and plug is just a simple one, and it typically is they don't really take in any new brands. It's basically existing brands changing up flavors. You might be take the banana flavor out, put the strawberry flavor in. That's typically what a pull and plug is. So that's really what's happening now is with the reset schedules getting pushed or delayed, they're going to be trying to cram more in towards the end of the year. And they're going to have to downplay them into mostly adjustments and pull and plugs.
Brands that we're expecting to be cut in, are there any reductions in those kinds of situations?
I don't think so. I mean, if you got the green light for your buyer category manager that you were going in and setting the items up, chances are you're going to be delayed if you're not already have been delayed. But for the most part, I believe you're going to get into the set. It's just going to take a little bit more time if you've already gotten the official word. If you've had a meeting and it went very well and you're very confident, but they didn't make final decisions, then you might still be up in the air. It's going to depend on a lot of different factors out there.
Is there anyone who's tracking sort of the broad set of retailers who are doing category reviews and resets for up-to-date information?
Well, it's a very fluid situation. I know up here, Stop and Shop has transitioned. They're doing their resets at night. I think Whole Foods is doing the same thing. So they're kind of trying to keep to the schedule. But then there's a question about how much is really getting done. How efficient have they been? Are they going to have to go back and kind of fix these up later on down the line? But most retailers have kind of pushed them off, and there hasn't really been a set of like when it's kind of going to go live back, turn them back on.
Are there any opportunities that you're seeing that are being created with the change in reset timing?
Well, I mean, not too much right now. It might be down the line where some brands, unfortunately, some smaller brands are struggling. They might not make it through this, because of, the nature of the business. So that's probably where you're going to probably see a little bit of it. The other thing from the big CPG companies is a lot of the big CPG companies have pulled back innovation. And that's another thing that will dictate some of the reset schedules when timing's going to happen. Because a lot of times the retailers, especially the conventional retailers, they work around the big CPG companies when they're going to be launching items to try to time into that for those resets. So most of the major CPG companies have pulled back on their innovation. And what's going to be happening is, once they start announcing when they're going to be launching items, I think the retailers will be moving the schedule around to match it up to that.
So I just want to follow up on that for 1 second.
Yep.
Should the smaller brands be looking at those kind of vested interest products that come from the big brands, and how are they supposed to know when those are going to be cut in?
Well, that's really with communicating with your brokers and your sales reps and talking to the category managers and buyers, because that's probably when you're going to start seeing some notification out from the buyers and category managers about when the resets are going to be. Because if they got the big brands coming in there, that's when they're going to be looking to change everything around, do those resets and stuff. And it's going to, initially it's going to be tough on some of the smaller brands. If you don't have, if you're not already working with existing retailers, it's going to be tough to get products in 2020 because most of the buyers are probably going to just fall back on staying with their existing brands unless there's a big hole in the market or a brand is really just, lighting the world on fire. It's going to be tough for new brands to get into, especially on the conventional side, tough for small brands to get into new retailers.
So we've been discussing category reviews as a process, and that's the sort of in-store number crunching that takes place when we're identifying momentum and opportunities as buyers. But for most entrepreneurial brands, the moment they're really waiting for is the product review process. And that's the time when a buyer might be looking at what they have to offer. And to help give us another voice on how that particular part of the process is going for brands that are on their quest to acquire distribution, we're going to bring in Betsy Gillette, who's another sales expert and a co-founder and CEO of Synergy Sales Consulting Group. Betsy has worked with brands, with UNFI, and as a senior executive with Ignite Sales Management before she helped start Synergy. Betsy, welcome. Please tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here for the first time. So Synergy, we're the sales force for brands that don't have their own. So we help brands figure out their overall sales strategy, and then we go and execute that. We manage the distributors, the brokers, we track to the category reviews, we prepare the selling presentations, do the data and analytics to make sure that the brands are putting their best foot forward. And we're an integrated business partner with the brands that we work with, hopefully trying to take them to exit. So we work with about 8 to 10 brands at a time, roughly in the $2 to $25 million range. So.
And most of these brands are trying to add new stores and new territory. So they're in growth mode, or they're trying to break in for the first time. So how are buyers? Are they able to access buyers right now?
To reiterate what John said, yeah, it's tough right now. We are seeing some success in the natural channel, a little bit more than in the conventional channel. Retailers like Fresh Thyme are moving forward with the resets. Whole Foods are doing, some category reviews and resets right now. It's a little bit, there's not as many items being approved as there once was, but we still have some access to the buyers, particularly in the natural channel. And I'm hopeful that once COVID is mostly behind us, then our broker partners can go out to retail and sell into the tiny independents like they always have. And obviously that's been on hiatus here for the past 8 weeks or so.
I just wanted to ask, when you get access to the buyers, are they willing to roll the dice as they have been in the past?
It depends on the retailer. It's interesting. We'll talk to one buyer at a retailer and they'll say, yeah, we're moving forward and, send us your information. And then a different buyer from a different category is like, we're going to put it on hold. So it's just a mixed bag out there. And to John's point, doing your best to keep abreast of what's happening at each specific retailer you want to target is really important. Whether it's through your broker partners, directly with the buyers, the distributors, any piece of information you can get is really helpful right now. But I think some of the more forward-thinking retailers, particularly the ones that have traditionally taken a chance on new brands, like a Whole Foods, like sometimes Natural Grocers and Fresh Thyme, we're still getting the access to that. Things are being delayed and moving slower, but it's still happening.
What would you say is the average time it's taking from that buyer meeting to cutting in?
We don't know yet, because like at Whole Foods, it's, usually 8 or 9 months. It's probably still going to take that long, right? The question is, are these retailers, conventional or otherwise, if they make a decision today on what they want to bring in, when is that really going to happen? And I don't think they know that at this point. There's too many moving pieces, and different parts of the country are opening up a little faster than others. So I think the key message is that brands are going to have to be flexible and be able to move quickly when asked upon, regardless of it's, when is a reset happening, or, when these retailers decide they're going to change the category review timing, like they're going to send a note out, and within a week or two, you're going to have to submit your information, I think. So the brands need to be ready to do that.
And then they also need to be able to manufacture and ship,
yep.
Kind of at a moment's notice.
Yeah, that's another key piece that all our brands have really struggled with and have spent a lot of time on is the whole supply chain piece. I mean, the one thing is to sell it in, but also to better understand how much product are they going to need to make. We saw this huge high in March, and now there's a little bit of a lull in April, and just better understanding how much product to make given cash constraints, given everything that's going on, has been a real challenge. And it's also interesting seeing some brands. One brand I heard of, they all of a sudden their glass bottles aren't available because something needed to be made for COVID, and all the supply was taken up. So they have to bob and weave, very quickly to make sure that they can still supply the product.
Are either of you finding that in cases like that, retailers are less likely to want to cooperate, or is that? I know that last week we talked about a certain spirit of we can just get it done together. Are you two finding that?
I would say yes. I mean, everyone wants to do the right thing. We've seen the distributors really step up and try to help and move product around where they can. I think the buyers and the retailers are going to try to do the same thing. It's just, what can they do? It's a little, you just don't know yet.
Jeff, from the conventional retailer side, I mean, they've been very good about understanding. And the one thing I would stress is communication. If you think you potentially could have a problem with the product or timing wise, just communicate it to the buyer so they have an idea it's coming. And it's not just at the 12th hour, all of a sudden, oh, we don't have that product. Apologies, definitely go be ahead of the curve with that, be upfront with it and tell them when worst case scenario, what would be happening. So that's the one thing I would say about the communication.
Are there any categories that you're finding people are willing to do product reviews in right now?
It's interesting. It's one of the categories people are looking at is baking right now. We work with one baking brand that has everyday items and holiday specific, and a large Texas retailer reached out to us and said, we're ready to go now. It wasn't really a review time frame, but they knew we had the products and asked us to bring them in, so we did. So I think a bigger piece is how do you be opportunistic when these situations arise? And I think, one of the other things some of our brands have seen is if an incumbent brand is not able to supply, then the retailer needs to fill their shelf. So we've had a Midwest retailer reach out to us on one of our frozen brands and said, hey, can you supply us a one-time shot for one truckload of product? And the good news for us is, we were able to supply it without shorting any of our other current customers. And hopefully it'll sell through, we'll get some reorders, and maybe we'll stay on shelf. So it's not really a category review, but being able to take advantage of opportunities when they come up, I think the brands need to be aware of.
Yeah, okay. Like I represent a soup manufacturer, and we've had a lot of category reviews. But typically, because soup is the time of year where you're reviewing soup for the fall. So I think certain categories, it probably, like soup and baking, that's seasonal, are more apt to get the reviews done.
Yep.
So we have a question from our first call-in guest, Jillian Van Gin. I hope I'm saying that right. Who's the CEO of Fatso Peanut Butter. Jillian, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
All the way from Canada. So I guess I'll just jump right into my question. So we're a brand, we're in 21 stores in the Pacific Northwest in Whole Foods. We expanded there in October. We had planned on going down to Expo, and clearly some of our plans have been a bit derailed. And we do have a broker down in California, and we have distribution that can go down the I-5. So we're sort of forging ahead. So I'm curious to know, what advice would you have for people that are sort of already moving into the United States and hoping to expand during this time? We've already got the ball rolling, and so we're being careful about how we're doing it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on a Canadian brand or a brand from outside the US that's already in the midst of a US rollout.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters if if you're from the U.S. or Canada at all. But the thing that you have to be wary of is how much cash do you need to spend and how long is it going to take you to gain that distribution. I don't think you necessarily need to stop, because I think there's business to be had, but I think you need to be prepared that it's going to be a little bit slower than you otherwise would have thought it would be. I think as it sounds like your brand is kind of independently store driven, and having those brokers go into stores to sell them, store by store, based on your distribution with UNFI or KeHE or however you're distributing, I think will be important. And continuing to talk to those brokers to see what they're able to actually accomplish in their market is going to be key for you.
Jill, if you can stick with us for 1 sec, I can hear something going on in the background there.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, how are you finding that your brokers are communicating well with you? And to throw it back to John, are there ways that you would work with your broker differently right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably from the expectations, I would say. Make sure they understand what you expect. It's the expectations are different now than they would have been had we not had this COVID-19 situation. And oftentimes brokers can get frustrated if they don't feel like they're getting enough done for you. So make sure they be reasonable with your expectations and timelines. And I think that's the number one thing, because you want to keep your broker's morale up on the brand, because you don't want to get them frustrated on it. So that would the number one thing I'd say is, keep the morale up with your broker.
We refocused to really look at California, seeing as that we're up in Victoria, British Columbia. We went down to Washington and then to Oregon. So our plan was, hopefully a national rollout after Expo, but we refocused to California. But the sustainability, to your point, Betsy and John, also looking for benchmarks from our brokers, I think is really good advice for us right now. We're looking to move slowly and actually use this as an opportunity to keep things slow and in control, because as a small Canadian brand with a market of 25 million, going into a place like California can be really ham-fisted. So we know that there's a real opportunity for a small brand like ours to really roll out of control quickly and have to pack it back to Canada with our tail between our legs.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we're doing right now with a lot of our brands is making sure that our broker partners have all the tools that they need in order to be successful. We're training them, retraining them. They've had some new people since maybe we've, did a brand refresh with them in the past. We're making sure that, they have access to all samples and VIP coupons and swag if it's available. So being prepared and ready to go, I think will be, help you as we come out of this here, hopefully in the next few weeks or months.
Okay, great.
So Jill, thank you very much for joining us. I just want to swing the question back to our retail experts real quick. Jillian was talking about the idea of whether or not things might have to turn into retreat. And some of that's dependent on how well the distributors are adapting to the situation, how well they're able to get product into stores. Are they able right now to build momentum for brands, or are they facing a lot of the same trouble that the retailers are?
It's a little bit of both, honestly. I mean, the distributors are doing a phenomenal job, I think. And, we don't always say that about our distributor partners, but I think right now they're really have stepped up and have tried to supply the best that they possibly can. They're bringing in additional resources and all of that. So first, they're trying to take care of the staple items as much as they possibly can. And then, they have had to take a little bit of a break, in my opinion, to forage new items and new distribution centers. They're not activating ancillary items, to try to grow volume. They want to make sure that those slots are taken up for the items that are actually going to sell and are a proven winner. But that said, I have seen both UNFI and KeHE reach out to brands and work with brands that have essential items, like a pasta that's not activated in one DC, to see about activating in another because they're having a shortfall with a different supplier. So there have been some opportunities in that regard that, they need to do out of obviously necessity.
Are you finding the communication between brand and distributor is on the level it could be?
Honestly, we've always struggled with a little bit of that communication. I think the distributors are struggling a little bit right now because, they're not used to working from home, right? Where us in sales, we're all of us work from home. So they had to get computers set up, they had to get, places to work, so I think it took them a while to get used to working from home and get all of that acclimated. And I think that they're all so busy just taking care of their customer that it is a little bit harder to get in touch with them right now. I think their generic communication from their organizations out to the brand community has been pretty strong. We're getting regular updates from UNFI and KHE and other distributors. But in terms of working directly with your buyers in particular, that has been more challenging because they're just so busy. So asking for something special has been a little difficult.
Yeah, so Jeff, I tag onto that and say, items that are set up in the system are, are obviously a lot more easy for them to move with versus trying to get new SKUs set up. Because once again, you get people working in all different, it's not working in the office.
Did we just lose John?
Oh, there he is.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the middle to end of that. You were talking about items that are in the system?
Items that are currently set up, it's a lot easier for the distributors to move through that versus items that might not be set up in the system yet. If they have to create new items, it's more cumbersome, especially where everything is disjointed. They're not all working in an office. Everyone's working out of their homes.
So we just went through a period where there was massive throughput and a lot of demand from retailers for everything. I mean, mid-March to mid-April, we were looking at some stats from the IRI, and the number of customers coming into categories or the number of purchases that were taking place was over-indexed by like 200% in some places. Certainly frozen went nuts, for example. Have your brands been able to keep up, and are they getting notification back from the distributors that there's demand to fill?
John, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so, every manufacturer is different, and many manufacturers have basically taken a policy of, we're going to worry about our top, 20% of the items that might do 80% of our volume, the 80-20 rule, and work on getting those products to the stores, to the distributors, and thus to the stores. And once again, I'll lean back to the communication, making sure you're communicating that to the retailers and distributors. That's what I see good manufacturers doing, is really focusing on the top selling items and making sure to keep those in stock. Because that's going to be the best bang for the buck for the manufacturer, the distributor, and the retailer. That's where everyone's going to win. Because everybody understands when the volume, like you said, frozen vegetables, frozen fruit, handheld snacks, pizza. I mean, the numbers are just astronomical. So no one could possibly plan that, and they burnt through any backroom stock they had. So that it's really about communicating. And I think most manufacturers are doing a good job communicating to the distributors and to the retailers on what's happening there.
I wanted to shift for a minute or two back toward the product review process, because we know so many people are sort of frozen in place, sheltering at home. Are they willing to review products? Are they willing to take samples? Do they have to go into the office to get that? So how is that actual face-to-face changing?
Well, what my experience and my team's experience has been is it's really difficult to get samples out at the moment. We have had some instances where, we are part of a category review, we can't send samples, but the buyer reaches out specifically and says, I want these items because I want to try them. And they'll say either send them to my office because I'm going to be there on a certain day, or in some cases, they've actually given us their home address. That's more the exception than the rule. But right now it's really hard to get samples. As it relates to the category review meetings, I think we're going to go back to seeing in-person meetings because it's just so hard to have that relationship with the buyer when you're doing it over the phone or the Zoom, right? For me, when I go into some retailer meetings, like I already know these people, so they already know the brand, they know the people. So having 1 or 2 meetings via Zoom is not a problem. It's a little harder when you don't know each other, and I don't think it'll be a long-term thing. I think we'll go back to kind of we'll call it the old days at this point.
Yeah,
John, do you feel that way?
Yeah, one thing I was going to say, especially on samples, I reiterate what Betsy said, but one thing on samples, we get a lot of requests for a PDF of your packaging, the front and the back with the nutritional panel and a scannable UPC and ingredients, which is very important. So everybody should really have that for every one of their products. And part of the reason for that is there are multiple people in the office that work on stuff. It might be, there's sugar tax now in certain states and certain cities. So someone's going to be looking at the ingredients and nutritionals and some of the special bib tags they have. If it's a nutritional item, 0 fat, organic, all those type of things. So it's a good policy now to have a PDF of both the front and back of your package, of your label, that you can get out to the brokers for every one of your items, because that's very handy for the buyers to have something like that.
That's really good advice. So we know that, first of all, I just want to ask, are there any product review cycles or category review cycles that are just done for the year, even it only being May?
I think not that I'm aware of. I think the retailers are going to move forward with their category reviews. I think they're going to end up prioritizing certain ones that have to get done in the fall, as John mentioned, whether it's baking or soup. But I wouldn't definitively say if you're in this category, you're out of luck. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, it's going to vary by retailer.
Okay. But for emerging brands, we know it's going to be taking longer. Is there advice that you have for them as they kind of try and wait it out?
Well, one thing I would say is don't, if you're getting frustrated, just don't go after accounts for the sake of going after accounts. If they're an account that 3 months ago you said, well, we're not interested because it's not the right fit, just because this happened doesn't make them the right fit, because you're going to spend good money after bad, because 99 out of 100 times it's going to be a bad spend, whether it's slotting, promotions, manpower to go into that retailer. If you decide that retailer doesn't fit your protocol for what you want to be selling, don't change the decision, because 3 of the ones you wanted to get into, now you're not going to be able to. You're much better off, hold on to that cash, tell your investors you need to hold on, you need to wait, unfortunately, because you have to wait for these reviews. Don't just go chasing after retailers that are not going to perform for you.
Yep. And I think working on where you have distribution, making sure that velocity is where you want it to be. It's a little hard to do right now given COVID, but where you've got it, make sure that it's performing, whether, you have a plan for geo-targeting and social media pushes in the meantime, or, having a demo plan ready once we're able to safely do demos again, or IRCs and that sort of thing. I think shoring up your current business is going to be, it's going to be important because you're going to need that velocities, and when you come out of this on the other side. I think there's also some other channels that some brands in the meantime can go after, whether it's subscription box programs and GoPuff and Bunny James Box. I mean, there's a ton of them out there that could be the right fit for certain brands. Not a ton of volume, but it does keep the product moving, and it gets a little bit of brand awareness out there. QVC is another one. I've had a few brokers reach out to me on QVC about QVC because they're starting to sell more food online.
Oh, that's a very interesting channel opportunity there, both QVC and HSN. There's certainly social distancing there. I did want to ask though, are there any of these sort of visibility-based channels that are actually sources of revenue?
I think there's a little bit of revenue to be had. I don't think it's huge amounts, right? I think it's probably, I don't see that from our brands necessarily. So I don't know exactly what kind of revenue it is, but my guess is it's fairly small. And hopefully it's profitable, right? If you can't do it at a profit, then I probably wouldn't, but I don't think it's huge.
So we had a question in from the audience, and it takes us back just a little bit into the land of Zoom. Whether or not we go back to the days of face-to-face meetings, right now we are in this sort of Zoom chat era. And I wonder if there are any tips that you're able to share for folks who may be pitching buyers via Zoom or a remote setup.
I think be yourself, right? Be prepared. Treat it like any other meeting that you would go to. Get dressed for the day, right? Sit up straight, all those good things that your mother taught you. But also have samples to show them, right? They might not be able to taste them on the spot, but you can show them, talk about the brand and be energetic. And be as engaging as you possibly can be. But also know that, these Zoom calls, at least the ones that I have had, have been 30 minutes. And usually that turns into 20 minutes of real selling time, because 5 minutes, everyone's trying to figure out how to use Zoom. And the other 5 minutes is for introduction. So, have a very concise message, and be poignant and be prepared and well-practiced.
Yeah,
John,
definitely from a time standpoint, Jeff, because the buyers, everyone talks about buyers never stay on schedule. They're kind of like doctors, they just think we got all day type of thing. But doing it on Zoom, they're more apt to try to stay on schedule, because they can see some of the guys have like 2 Zoom rooms set up, so they can see the other one, people are waiting. So they're more apt to stay on target. Love Betsy's idea about the showing some product, have the samples. And the other thing is, if you're in a category where item dimensions vary on, multiple brands have different unit dimensions, you can talk about that. Like, this is the same size bottle as X, or same size box, same width, because those are things that they would think about if they were in their office. They'd have it in their hands. They kind of understand it. So that's important to a buyer.
Yeah, now is not the time to be introducing a sort of unorthodox product shape, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
So we've heard a lot of advice about filling the gap, moving products to prime accounts during the crisis. And I wonder, what's the best way to say, I'm going from a B account to an A account if you're dealing with that B account?
John, do you want to go first?
I can go first. I mean, the big CPG companies put everybody on allocation. You do 2% of our business, you get 2% of the product, and, everyone wants to jump, especially smaller companies, they want to jump at new opportunities. The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to exhaust all your inventory and then have existing customers not be able to get any product. So you definitely want to understand, what you really have and what you have for extra that you can give to somebody, other new accounts, and understand, we have one piece we haven't talked about today is co-packers, right? Some co-packers are running 100%, some are running at 50%, some have been shut down for a couple of weeks. So you really have to understand, what your inventory situation is, number one, and where you can get more stuff manufactured, where you at with your co-packer. And because you don't want to jump onto a new account and burn existing accounts.
Yeah, and I think going back to what John mentioned before is, there are some opportunities out there and opportunistic selling propositions, but if it's not a retailer that you would go after normally, then, you know, don't do it now, just to be there. And understand what it takes to be successful in those accounts, whether it's promotional activity or other such support, because you're gonna be playing with the bigger guys at that point, so be ready.
So one of the things that we've seen more and more of from the big guys and from all kinds of retailers via services like Mercado, you know, the progress of curbside and delivery is really changing. How is that rolling back and affecting the brands that you two work with?
Well, I think when people buy online, they're less apt to buy new things, right? They're typically going to buy items that they always buy. So for young brands, that's tough because, you know, a lot of it is impulse, seeing something new, exciting. You know, people see it in the store, they pick it up off the shelf. When you're ordering off of a computer screen, you know, or, you know, doing a curbside, you're just basically buying stuff that you know. So it kind of, I think people tend to fall back into just the major brands from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what smaller brands can do, or any brand for that matter, is just make sure that on those platforms that your products are well represented with their images and their search engines, and every retailer is a little bit different on how that's managed. But, you know, just make sure that everything is up to date. So when a consumer clicks on your product, it is a really good representation of it.
Are there certain packaging or assortment recommendations that your clients are following on optimizing for curbside?
For mine, no, it's just the normal products that we would sell every day.
Yeah, I don't see anything of that for the curbside happening.
Okay, so I think we have another caller here, and it's Hollis Calloway, who's the founder of Montaigne Sparkling Spring Water. Good to have a Southerner here, Hollis.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey, Hollis.
So, what's your question, sir?
Well, with the shift to online grocery shopping and you know, being an emerging brand, I agree that it is, you know, people go with what they're familiar with, and it can be challenging to stand out on the page. Our toolbox for growing is very much conventional.
All right, we're back. I'm Ray Latif, the editor and producer of BevNet's Taste Radio podcast, and you are joining us for the announcement of the winner of NOSH's Pitch Slam 8 competition, sponsored by 301 Inc. Really an amazing competition. So great to see these brands that are really taking our food industry to the next level, and will be for years to come. Congratulations to all the semifinalists. Congratulations to everyone who applied to be part of this competition. You folks are really driving this industry forward. Thank you so much. Just a quick announcement before we make the announcement. Just a reminder that BevNet and NOSH Virtually Live is taking place on June 23rd and 24th. Sign up today, register today. Easy to do so. Just subscribe to BevNet and NOSH. You'll have a space to attend the show. All right. It's time now to announce the winner of the NOSH Pitch Slam 8 competition. And the winner is Saverly. Congratulations to Saverly. They are the winners of not only the Pitch Slam, but $10,000 in an ad package and this beautiful trophy that I have right here in front of me. Let's go back to David and Ethan, who are the founders of Saverly, the co-founders. David, Ethan, how are you?
Hi, Ray.
Hi.
Oh,
Congratulations.
good.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yes, we see the cup. We'd love to have be able to hold it in our hands, but it'll be for next time.
Well, we're gonna send you a one of these very shortly, and you'll be able to put it in your office, on top of your car, wherever you want to put it. Really, it's up to you.
Amazing. Thanks.
Yeah. So once again, congratulations, great job. You know, I think one of the things that really stood out in terms of the judges' feedback was that your product was really polished from a packaging standpoint and from a product standpoint as well. You know, how long have you been working on this? Because it seems like, you know, for a relatively new brand, this is years ahead of where it should be.
So thanks for that, and we really valued all of the judges' comments on that as well. We did invest a lot of time and effort, and it was a lot of trial and error into the packaging and the product as well to make it optimized, to make it appealing, to really convey that message that we want to convey to consumers of being fun and being to be outgoing, and that really resonates, and especially make it as approachable as we can.
Yeah, and we want to give a shout out to our graphic designer that worked a lot with us. Millie, she's amazing, and just a shout out for her as well for working on it with us.
Yeah, one of the interesting things also, you know, the judges talked about usage occasion. You know, you guys said that this is a brand that can play into a lot of spaces, into a lot of different uses. You know, when you think about your innovation pipeline, are you thinking about, you know, a different line, a different product for different day part uses, say morning, afternoon, evening, or do you see everything as sort of fitting into, you know, this is a great product, these are great, this is great food for any time of the day?
Yeah, so definitely we are as we said in our presentation, we are continuously looking for ways to innovate, and we did launch with our appetizers, which scream occasion and holidays, but we really want to convey that message of try to use them in try to think of ways to enjoy them in your garden or over after work or as an afternoon snack. Yeah. Like Ethan mentioned, at the demos we learned so much that actually kids enjoyed our snacks so much that they go crazy for the goat cheese. It's something that that doesn't that was surprising, and we learned. Yeah.
What's one piece of feedback from the judges that you weren't expecting to hear?
The piece from Karen, how we were surprised, and we really valued her feedback on how she mentioned that she thinks we will stand out in that frozen section, in that door, and we'll be able to promotionally do stuff that competitors and brands around us will not necessarily be able to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the judges mentioned that they thought that the Savorly brand could be extended to other categories outside of frozen. Do you see an opportunity to get out of that set, to get out of that category and move into other parts of the store?
Yeah, so innovation is part of our DNA, and we want to evolve. For now, we're in the frozen category, and we want to expand in that and find new ways to innovate in the frozen category, but the doors are always open, of course.
Yeah, like one of the judges in the semifinals mentioned is that with our packaging, we left the doors open for many possibilities, like now as well. So we're definitely always looking for opportunities, but right now frozen is where it's at, and we're looking forward for what's next.
So I know you outlined a little bit of what's next for the brand in 2020, but more specifically, where do you see Savorly going for the next 6 months?
So we have that Whole Foods rotation coming up at the end of the year. So that's something we'll be working on, and again expanding into that specialty and natural section. And also with everything going on, we really, like everyone, try to shift our focus and thinking of how we can find creative ways to exploit everything that's online. So our our online store is definitely becoming more active, finding ways to optimizing distribution for our D2C network, and basically connecting all the dots online to make sure consumers have that full experience when they hear, taste, or see Savorly.
Is fundraising a part of your next steps as well?
Definitely. To be able to sustain our growth and to do that in a good way, we're definitely looking into investment as well.
All right. Well, any investors that send me an email and say, "How do I get in touch with the guys from Savorly?" I'll send them your way.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Guys, David, Ethan, congratulations again. A well-deserved, hard-fought win. And I hope you can take the next few hours to bathe in your victory.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thanks to the whole NOSH and BevNet Live team, to the judges, to Pete, Kiva, Carol, Karen, and hopefully we speak very soon.
I really hope so. Cheers, guys, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up NOSH Pitch Slam 8. Just an incredible competition over these past, over the 2 days of the show. Once again, congratulations to all the participants. I think that this is one of the best competitions we've seen in years, and I hope it gets better from here. Just a quick reminder that we will be showing the final round of New Beverage Showdown 19 at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in for that. That's going to be another exciting round and another exciting announcement as to the winner of that competition. Until then, signing off for our amazing team at BevNet and NOSH, I'm Ray Latif. We'll see you at 3:30.